So here's the question for today's AK show. If an illegal alien who likes to smoke dope and make his own firearms goes to a state where marijuana has been legalized and there is a Firearms Freedom Act and it's a sanctuary state, do you think the feds are going to turn their back and look the other way because of state law? We're talking about the fallacy of Firearms Freedom Acts on today's AK show.
This is Alex AK Kincaid. Welcome to the AK Show.
Do you really think that a state law that says it nullifies federal law is really going to protect you? And by the way, Stuka came along today, so if you see her in the corner, click the like button. But you know, these Firearms Freedom Acts, they're also called Second Amendment Protection Acts, popped up around the country during the Obama years. And it was a valid effort. I get it. We wanted to take some kind of action against a federal government that has been passing more and more laws to strip us of our rights. But what has happened and what I see in my law practice is that normal law-abiding citizens who aren't criminals, they don't want to break the law, wind up breaking laws with 10-year prison sentences potentially because they think that this state law is going to protect them. So what are Firearms Freedom Acts? They're also called Second Amendment Protection Acts, and these states were desperate to do something, to take some kind of action to protect their citizens and their residents from what they saw as an overreaching federal government. And when the federal government was talking about gun control, which they still are, but during the Obama administration, state legislatures said, you know what, we're going to pass some laws that say that if you manufacture a firearm in this state, out of parts from this state, and the firearm doesn't leave the state, then Congress doesn't have the power to regulate those firearms. And some of these laws went so far as to say if a federal agent tried to enforce federal law that violated what these Firearms Freedom Acts said, that those federal agents could be prosecuted. Do you really think that a state law can just nullify federal law? And that's why I was so sarcastic in the beginning of this video. The feds aren't just going to look the other way. This is serious stuff. This is firearms, you know? And I told people back in the day when I was prosecuting and marijuana was just beginning to be legalized around the country, the feds can still prosecute you. It doesn't matter what your state law says. Federal law still says it's a crime. And it's the same thing with our immigration laws. These states that want to say they are sanctuary states, or the cities that want to say they are sanctuary cities, federal law trumps that. So when you look at these Firearms Freedom Acts, the Second Amendment Protection Acts, we like that. It makes us feel good. Those laws are not going to protect you. And I know this because the courts are saying this. And one of the first cases that came forward came out of Montana. It was from a dealer who wanted to start marketing a made in Montana firearm for sale. And he had hundreds of people that wanted to buy this gun, but he was proactive in how he approached this. So he filed with the court to find out if the Montana Freedom Act would protect him, Firearms Freedom Act would protect him. And the court said no. And this was appealed to the Ninth Circuit. I know, big eye roll, Ninth Circuit. Surprisingly, the Ninth Circuit said, we're not going to protect you. And I say that with all the sarcasm in my heart. The Ninth Circuit, of course, said, this doesn't fly. You cannot override the Gun Control Act, the federal law that says you have to have a license in order to manufacture and in order to sell firearms. So that was a no-go. Later on in Kansas, we saw the Second Amendment Protection Act become an issue in a case that's now being appealed to the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals. And oral arguments for that case were held earlier this year. We're waiting to see what the 10th Circuit says, but I have a suspicion that I know. It's not going to be surprising to find out that the defendants in that case will still be convicted. They were prosecuted, you see, for violation of the National Firearms Act because one person made a suppressor and then sold it to another person, and both of them were prosecuted by the feds and they were convicted. Fortunately for them, the sentencing judge in that case decided that he wasn't going to send them to prison, but potentially, folks, the prison sentence for violating this law is 10 years per an incident. Are you really going to get 10 years? Well, that's up to the judge. Probably not, unless you do it repeatedly and you do it intentionally. But still, who wants to spend a day in prison? Who wants to lose their firearms? Who wants to lose their right to possess a firearm for the rest of their lives? That's what you're looking at, plus fines, plus attorney fees. So my advice to my clients is, you may like this. You may have legal analysis that says the states have the right to do this. Whatever your reasoning, do you want to be the test case for these laws? And if you're wondering how Congress has the authority to regulate interstate commerce in a situation where you have manufactured a firearm in your own state, there's case law that goes way, way back that says, you know what, if you're making something like a machine gun, this is another Ninth Circuit case, by the way, if you're making a machine gun in your own home, it does affect interstate commerce, because the market for machine guns will change if people start making their own machine guns. So if you affect the market in some way across state lines, or if it's possible to do that, as the law stands right now, our courts will find that this is within Congress's authority to legislate and to pass laws to restrict you. So in this case that came out of Kansas, it's been an interesting saga to some extent to watch, although very disheartening to see two gun owners be prosecuted for what looked to be an honest reliance on this state law that said, we will protect you. And the governor's been involved, the AG has been involved, there's been letter writing and support, and gun organizations helping to fund the defense for these guys. But at the end of the day, they are the ones who are left with these convictions. So I truly hope I'm wrong about the 10th Circuit and the decision that will be made. I don't think I am. All in all, these laws are on par with the feel-good laws that liberals like to pass. Don't be that guy. Don't think that the state is actually going to prosecute federal agents for looking at you if you're manufacturing firearms without a license and violating federal law. I'm Alex A.K. Kincaid. Thank you for watching The AK Show.
This is Alex A.K. Kincaid, and thank you for watching The AK Show.
Get Alex A.K. Kincaid's book, Infringed, The Gun Owner's Guide to Gun Rights.